there's a Department of Disinformation now, and
they already had one, by the way. It's like a Department of Cyber Policy at DHS. It was run by this guy Chris Krebs in the Trump administration. So this is like an extra thing. They already had that.
So the person in charge of this is a big disinformer herself, right? And
a massive liar.
And what is this doing? She's a massive liar, big disinformer. She's she spreads conspiracy theories and propaganda, which I don't want to censor her for. But she wants to censor everyone else who has a counter narrative. The people who are actually telling the truth is who she wants to censor. They never want to censor people lying. Keep that in mind. If you lied, they'll no problem. It's if when you tell the truth. Julian Assange has been imprisoned not because he told lies. He's in prison because he told truths about war criminals. And what this is doing, what the Democrats are doing, is they're making right-wingers look hip, cool, and the defenders of liberty. Because what this Department of Disinformation is creepy authoritarian Orwellian on steroids.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing I never could have imagined that this would happen in the United States. But there's a lot of stuff that's been happening since Trump that I could never imagine, meaning the establishment completely doing propaganda on their people so they don't ever look at the real causes of why we got Trump. They're still doing this. That's what this is. This is holy shit. The people got their voice. They voted for Trump and they voted for Brexit, and we can't let that happen anymore. And so we have to have complete narrative control, and that's how they're doing it. And so now now they give a right winger like DeSantis, who should be repulsive to people who are on the left. Now they make him attractive. And how are they doing it? Watch, here's what he says.
But clearly, our entire principles that the country was founded on, you cannot have a ministry of truth in this country. And so let's get real here. Let's make sure that we're doing things to benefit Floridians and Americans, but we're not going to let Biden get away with this one. So we'll be fighting back.
The Democrats are losing everybody who's gives a lick about liberty, freedom, it's civil rights. They're losing everybody. They tried to paint Trump, remember, during Black Lives Matter, that Trump was a crazy authoritarian who's going to send the army into the city. Well, now Joe Biden is doing worse. And so they're making guys like that look attractive. If you're for free speech and civil rights and liberties, who are you going to vote for? This guy or Joe Biden? Tough call, though, isn't it? What do you think? What do you say about this, Max?
Remember, during the election, you had 50 or so former high-level CIA and other intelligence figures, including 4 former heads of the CIA from the both parties, declare that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian plant. Yes. It was Russian disinformation. They took out a letter, and the letter was widely circulated across media and reported as legitimate by mainstream media. And all of us knew that that was bullshit. Everybody any thinking person in America knew that was bullshit. And the videos of Hunter Biden were already out there. So that was Joe Biden went on the debate stage against Trump and cited that letter as proof that his son's laptop essentially did not exist and was planted by Russia, and that Russia was using it to confuse the American public and divide America. And so 4 former CIA directors, and you're never really former CIA, influenced the election in favor of the candidate they wanted to get the result they wanted, because they were afraid of what Trump would say. What Trump was doing was not necessarily contravening their agenda, but what he was saying was really upsetting them. They influenced the election by lying to the American public, because they lie for a living. They're trained to lie. They are paid to lie. They are master liars. They are the biggest propagators of disinformation. As Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, said, when I was trained, we learned to lie, cheat, and steal. That's what we did. And these people are now determining what truth and fiction are. And the Democratic base are letting them get away with it. And then you have the press. What's the press doing? Is the press holding their feet to the fire? No, the media. Remember when I went out on Capitol Hill like a few weeks ago and I challenged Ro Khanna politely about the Ukraine, all the votes to give billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine. And I challenged Marina Elvira Salazar, the Republican Cuban from Florida, on a no-fly zone. Well, the whole media went out to the same places I went on Capitol Hill just a day before Biden asked for, the same day that Joe Biden asked for $33 billion, an insane aid package to Ukraine that will represent the greatest wet dream of the arms industry. I mean, over 20 billion of that will go to straight to the arms industry. And what were they doing out there? Were they challenging members of Congress on this vote, which like the squad went for? Were they challenging them on issues of war and peace, on the possibility of World War III, of nuclear extermination? Were they challenging them on that? No. They were hunting for Marjorie Taylor Greene and asking people about Marjorie Taylor Greene's text messages. And a lot of them were actually getting kind of like slapped around by Marjorie Taylor Greene when they found her. And the Republicans were all hitting their talking points. But that's what they were doing. And none of them have ever approached anyone in power to ask about Julian Assange. So if I find out they're out there again, I'm going to go ask the press. I'm going to go get in the press's face and ask about Julian Assange, because he could be coming to Washington soon to be put on trial in a federal courtroom in Northern Virginia for telling the truth. That's why he's being put on trial, not because WikiLeaks spread misinformation or disinformation, but because everything they said about our national security state was true. When he's brought here, it will completely unmask the sham of democracy when they put a journalist who's a citizen of another country on trial here for telling the truth. Then all the masks will be off. But for now, we're living with the most derelict, disinforming media being puppeteered by an intelligence community that is neither communal nor intelligent.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard got it right with this. She's usually very good on stuff like this, and she continues to be. She says, every dictatorship has a propaganda arm, a ministry of truth. The Biden administration has now formally joined the ranks of such dictatorships with their creation of the so-called Disinformation Governance Board. And that's a great point. And she put out a video. And then John Harwood retweeted it and said, kooky.
Yeah.
So that's called propaganda. What John Harwood is a good boy who's being paid by the military-industrial complex, the oligarchy, to manufacture consent. And part of that manufacturing the consent is to make sure anybody who goes against the war machine, and you have to make them seem creepy and icky.
Crazy.
And crazy.
I mean, that's what they did that with Assange. They're like,
yeah,
he's mentally ill.
And so that's what John Harwood is doing. Now, John Harwood is regularly seen on MSNBC. When I used to watch it, he was on there every day. And I think he writes for, garbage organizations like Newsweek, stuff like that. I don't know where he works exactly, but he's one of those guys. And
his name really captures his spirit and his aura.
Yeah,
like
Harwood.
It's just wood. It's like
So,
dead wood.
Glenn Greenwald says, just as corporate journalists are now the leading crusaders and activists for a regime of state corporate censorship, never stop realizing how twisted that is. They also are the leading defenders of the U.S. security state, grateful that they have now created a ministry of truth. There is no more reprehensible profession in the United States than corporate journalist. Those people are more insidious than just about anything or anybody. John Harwood is that guy is bad for the country, bad for the culture. Why? Because he's a willing tool of your oppressor, and he gets a six-figure salary to do stuff like this. And what's he doing? He's manufacturing consent for war. That's what he's doing. He's manufacturing consent for a loss of liberty. That's what he's there to manufacture consent of the oligarchs who own MSNBC, the 6 billionaires who own all the media. That's what he's there to do, and he's doing it. So I just want you to see it.
He's catering to his own class and people in his own professional circles by simply saying kooky. He doesn't explain what's kooky about it because
kooky?
he doesn't have to, because in his almost hermetic culture, his hermetically sealed elite culture, dissent is actually seen as a form of insanity, if not simply aberrant behavior. They just all understand that Tulsi Gabbard, if she says that, is crazy, but they don't even have to explain why. And that means that if you dissent, you're crazy, and you can therefore be labeled a conspiracy theorist or a spreader of disinformation and then be censored. And they never really offer an explanation. And one thing they will also never do is debate.
Yeah, that's right. They'll never, MSNBC will, when they brought Tulsi on to have a conversation, she humiliated them. And so that was that. They never let her back on again. And then they would just sit there and smear her, and Michael Moore would sit there and go along with it. Michael Moore, what a willing tool of the military-industrial complex. Here is what Albert Einstein said. He said, private capital tends to become concentrated in few hands. The result is an oligarchy of private capital, the enormous power of which cannot be effectively checked even by a democratically organized political society. This is true since the members of legislative bodies are selected by political parties, largely financed or otherwise influenced by private capitalists who, for all practical purposes, separate the electorate from the legislature. The consequence is that the representatives of the people do not, in fact, sufficiently protect the interests of the underprivileged sections of the population. Moreover, under existing conditions, private capitalists inevitably control, directly or indirectly, the main source of information, the press, the radio, education. It is thus extremely difficult, and indeed in most cases quite impossible, for the individual citizen to come to objective conclusions and to make intelligent use of his political rights. And so that's the world that was around then. It's the same world that's around now. The only difference now is that we have tools to actually amplify individual voices, and that scares them more, which is why which is why the capitalists get control of it, which is what they're doing, which is why they give strikes to people on YouTube and they block people's, again, always for telling the truth. They're not upset with lies. It's the truth that scares them. When I got a warning from YouTube, it wasn't because I was telling a lie. It was because I was telling a truth about COVID. And who didn't want me to tell that truth? Big Pharma. And so they enforce their rules. Had nothing to do with science. And lots of people have been, look what the head of this new disinformation governance body said about Max Blumenthal. She's blocked Aaron Mate. She has Aaron Mate blocked. Aaron Mate sent me this. Here's a tweet. I don't have it in the show, but I'll read it to you. She has Nina Jankowicz tweeted this out. I have Aaron Mate blocked because the Grayzone is a source of disinformation itself, unlike the government. Just implicated in a Russian disinformation op as of today, as a matter of fact. That's today she tweeted that out. That's the new head of the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board, saying that Max Blumenthal is spreading disinformation and is a Russian op. So anybody they don't like, all they have to do is say you're a Russian disinformation or you're a terrorist, and they'll shut you down. That's all they have to say. And people don't actually have to be violent. They just have, here, watch this. I want to play this again.
We have so many different efforts underway to equip local communities to identify individuals who very well could be descending into violence by reason of ideologies of hate, false narratives, or other disinformation and misinformation propagated on social media and other platforms.
So they're not violent. It's just thought. These are thought crimes. They haven't committed a crime. They haven't committed violence, but they have a thought that we don't like. That's all this is. This is everything you've ever been warned about. That's what this is. Everything you ever thought dictators did, Kim Jong-un, Pol Pot, Russia, they're behind the Iron Curtain. This is everything that I was told they did. We're now doing it. And of course, every time they do it, they say it's to protect you, to keep you away from the outside enemies, misinformation. That's what every dictator does. And now we're doing it. Fantastic. And the assholes who voted for Joe Biden are for it. And now you see why I'm not a Democrat, and why if you are a Democrat, you're a chump who's voting against your own interest. I used to think it was just Republican voters who voted against their own interest. It turns out it's everybody who votes for one of the two main parties. You're voting for your enemy. And they have people like AOC and Bernie to make you think there's going to be somebody fighting for you inside the party, when you know that Pramila Jayapal, the head of the Progressive Caucus, is your enemy, fighting against you, endorsing corporatists, and never pushing for Medicare for all, and in fact, wagging their finger at activists. So that's what the Democratic Party is. So go get them. Good luck. And you could enjoy all those YouTube shows that are wedded to the Democratic Party. Those people are called propagandists and cowards. But they call us nihilists. What they are propagandists and nihilists and access journalists. That's what they are. Anything you want to say, Max?
There's going to be a whole lot more to say in
Yeah.
the coming weeks and months about this. I think this is going to end in disaster.
You think that they'll get rid of this department because this will actually make people who vote Democrat upset? I don't think so. I think they're gonna, because what has happened, this is their response to Elon Musk buying Twitter. So this is them trying to get votes because they know they're going to get wiped out. This is them trying to, well, we got to get something. So we're going to get the COVIDians, the authoritarian Democrats to go along with us, the pro-censorship. So we're going to shore up their votes, and we're going to do it in the era of Elon Musk and free speech. And so that's their only groove. They have to sell you authoritarianism as a defense of liberty. They have to turn everything on its ear in order to get you to vote for them. That's all they have left. Okay.
I think it's already hurt them, damaged them politically to do this and to appoint such a person. And I can't imagine it getting better, but we'll see.
Elon Musk tweeted out, and I wish I would have put it in here. He tweeted out, well, you know, he said, I voted for Barack Obama twice, but the Democrats have been taken over by extremists. And that is actually true. But what people see that as left-wing extremists. No, they've been taken over by corporate authoritarian extremists, not left-wingers. The left-wingers have been eradicated from the Democratic Party, and all we have are corporatists and conservative right-wing Democrats and the people who serve them. That's all that's in the Democratic. So yes, the Democratic Party has been taken over by extremists, but not left-wing extremists. They're right-wing extremists, right?
Not like masked Antifa fanatics smashing stuff up in the street, although they might have been, dupes for the Democrats in 2020. You got highly credentialed, pedigreed, Ivy educated, insidious, Obama-like figures who are absolute fanatics, who are absolute authoritarian fanatics, which makes them far more dangerous than right-wing Republicans in the sense that they have this credibility, this aura of credibility to advance in a very extreme agenda.
Well, Max, thanks for taking time out with us today. Good luck with your getting censored by the new head of the Ministry of Truth. We'll see how that works out. But good luck to you. Thanks for coming on, everybody. Check out Max's work at the Grayzone. We're doing live stand-up shows in Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, Las Vegas, all over the country. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for tickets. And single tickets now available at all venues. So if you tried to buy one before and you couldn't, single tickets are now available. Plus, while you're at jimmydorecomedy.com, why don't you become a premium member? Sign up to our mailing list so when they cancel us, we can still stay in touch.